We often think of winners as loud, assertive, charismatic, the ones who stand tallest, speak first, and seem so certain about everything. But if you look a little closer, past the surface noise, past the performances, you'll find that the real winners, the ones who lead movements, build legacies, and inspire loyalty, don't act from bravado. They act from belief. Belief is quiet. It's internal. It doesn't need to shout because it knows where it's going. When you meet someone who truly believes in something, whether it's a vision, a mission, a product, or themselves, you can feel it. Not because they dominate the room, but because they anchor it. They aren't trying to convince you of how good they are. They're focused on what they're building. That's the difference. Bravado wants attention. Belief wants impact. Think of the best leaders you've ever met. Maybe they were coaches, teachers, entrepreneurs, parents. They didn't always have the flashiest resumes or the loudest voices, but they showed up consistently. They led with clarity, and they made people around them better. They didn't act like they had all the answers, but they made you feel like together you could figure it out. That is the essence of acting like a winner. It's not arrogance. It's not pretending to be bulletproof. It's something else, something quieter, more honest. It's belief in your values and your capacity and in your responsibility to serve something bigger than yourself. We live in a time where image can be curated, where confidence can be faked, where you can buy followers and manufacture hype. But belief can't be faked. Because when things get hard, and they always do, bravado disappears. Belief is what stays. Belief is what keeps you going at 5 a.m. when no one's watching. Belief is what holds you steady when your first pitch fails or your 10th attempt falls short. Belief doesn't care how many likes you got. Belief cares whether you did the right thing when it was hard. And if you don't start with belief, then no amount of posturing will ever be enough to sustain you. What we misunderstand so often is that winners don't wait until they've won to act like it. They act like it before the results show up. Not because they're trying to fool the world, but because they trust the process. They believe in and they believe in their ability to grow into the kind of person who can carry the weight of success. If you want to act like a winner, it doesn't start with what you wear or how you speak. It starts with what you believe about yourself and your mission. That belief creates the foundation for everything else. It shapes your standards, it informs your habits, and it becomes contagious to the people around you. Belief is powerful because it creates consistency. And consistency over time builds credibility. People follow leaders they trust. And trust is built through repeated proof of character. Not just competence, character. Your actions, your decisions, your values. These are the things people watch when the spotlight is off. These are the moments when belief matters most. Because when things go wrong, and they will, people don't need a show. They don't need noise. They need someone who still believes. Someone who still sees the destination even when the road is blocked. Someone who reminds them why they started in the first place. That's what acting like a winner really means. It means leading with calm under pressure. Not because you have no fear, but because you have something stronger than fear, belief. It means responding to setbacks not with panic, but with perspective. It means investing in relationships, not just transactions. And above all, it means making decisions based on long-term principles, not short-term popularity. There's a phrase I love, strong back, soft front. That's a winner. Someone who has strength in their convictions, but softness in their heart. They know who they are, but they never use it to diminish others. They lead with posture, not posing. And they understand that every great success is built on the back of belief. Belief in the mission, belief in the team, and belief in themselves. And here's the truth. If you don't believe in yourself first, no one else will. That doesn't mean you have to feel confident all the time. It means you trust that you can figure things out, that you're worthy of learning, growing, contributing, that you belong at the table, even if you're still building the skills to stay there. We don't need more people who look successful. We need more people who are committed, who act like winners, not because they've won yet, but because they've made the decision to live and work like someone who is worthy of winning. That decision, it's available to anyone. You don't need permission to believe in yourself. You don't need approval to take the first step. You need belief, the kind that is planted deep, the kind that can survive storms, the kind that doesn't crumble when you're doubted. Because here's the thing, the world will doubt you. It will test your resolve. It will ask if you really mean what you say, and your answer can't come from noise or bravado. It has to come from belief. That's the only thing strong enough to withstand the grind. So if you're going to act like a winner, do it from the inside out. Start with belief. And let everything else flow from there. We live in a world that celebrates volume. We reward visibility. We admire those who appear busy, who talk about hustle, who post the grind. But real hard work, deep, consistent, disciplined effort is really loud. It's often invisible. It's not about who posts first or stays latest just to be seen. It's about who stays committed, regardless of who's watching. The hardest worker in the room isn't the one making the most noise. It's the one who keeps showing up relentlessly, patiently, obsessively, long after others have stopped. There's something powerful about relentless effort. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a stage. It just needs a reason. And when someone finds a reason strong enough, they unlock a level of work that's almost impossible to match, not because they're more talented, but because they refuse to quit. Relentlessness isn't chaos. It isn't frantic. It isn't burnout. It's discipline. It's knowing exactly why you're doing something and being willing to do it again and again and again, especially when you don't feel like it. Especially when no one's cheering, especially when no one notices, because relentlessness isn't about being seen, it's about being true. We've glamorized the grind in a way that makes it look cool to be tired, cool to be overworked, cool to burn out, but that's not real work. That's performance. Real work is more patient. It's deeper. It's not fueled by caffeine or adrenaline. It's fueled by purpose. And people who work like beasts aren't trying to prove anything. They're trying to build something. Think about the people you admire, not the loudest, but the most respected. The ones you know you can count on. The ones who don't have to say they're reliable because their actions say it for them. That's the model. That's the standard. Consistency beats intensity every time. One great day doesn't build a legacy. One impressive project doesn't earn trust. What builds trust is showing up when it's boring, when it's frustrating, when it's thankless, and doing the work anyway. And there's a reason the hardest worker in the room is usually the last person to talk about it, because they're too busy working to make time for the spotlight. And ironically, that's what makes people notice them. Quiet excellence speaks louder than noisy effort. The truth is, the world doesn't need more performers, it needs more producers. More builders, more people who show up to do the work with excellence, integrity, and humility. And that kind of work doesn't get done in sprints, it gets done in seasons. Long stretches of focused, deliberate effort. That's where greatness is formed. Not in a viral moment, but in 1,000 small decisions to stay the course. People often ask, how do I become unstoppable? The answer is simpler than most would like to admit. Keep going, especially when it's boring, especially when it's hard, especially when you're not being rewarded. That's how resilience is built. That's how reputations are earned. That's how mastery is developed. Because when it comes down to it, the difference between average and extraordinary is rarely talent. It's persistence. It's endurance. It's the refusal to settle. And that's available to everyone, not just the most gifted or the most connected. Everyone has the ability to work like a beast, but not everyone is willing to. Why? Because it's not glamorous. It requires humility. It requires patience. It requires sacrifice. You have to let go of the need for instant results. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And you have to believe in a future that hasn't arrived yet. That's what makes relentless workers rare. They don't chase outcomes, they chase growth. They don't work to impress, they work to improve. And they don't just put in time, they put in intention. Every rep, every call, every meeting, it all matters. It's all part of the process. And here's the paradox. The people who work like beasts aren't trying to prove how tough they are. They're simply honoring the opportunity. They see the work itself as a gift. They don't take it for granted. That mindset changes everything. When you work with that kind of heart, people notice. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most dependable, the most grounded, the most consistent. And in a world that's constantly distracted, consistency is magnetic. You don't need to announce your hustle. Let your results do that for you. Let your habits speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your resilience speak. People may not clap for you every day, but they will trust you. And in the long run, trust is more valuable than attention. If you want to build something that lasts, stop trying to go viral. Start trying to go deep. Show up, do the work. Stay focused, be relentless, not in proving your worth, but in honoring your calling. That's what it means to work like a beast. And yes, it's hard. That's the point. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But most people stop at discomfort. Most people quit when it gets tough. Most people get distracted. That's where you separate yourself, not through talent, but through tenacity. You don't have to be the smartest, fastest, or most charismatic. You just have to be willing to do what others won't, over and over again. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you dependable. That's what makes you great. So don't worry about the spotlight. Don't worry about the applause. Don't even worry about the scoreboard. Just commit to the work, the quiet, daily, invisible work. And one day you'll look up and realize you became everything you set out to be, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you never stopped moving forward. There's something that happens when a person finds their why. The world doesn't necessarily get easier, but the path forward becomes clearer. The weight doesn't disappear, but the shoulders get stronger. That's what purpose does. It gives meaning to the effort. It transforms struggle into service. It makes the grind worth it, not because the pain goes away, but because now the pain has a place to go. People often talk about motivation as if it's a spark they can summon on demand, but motivation is unreliable. It fades. It shifts with moods, seasons, and circumstances. Some days it's there, most days it's not. Purpose, on the other hand, doesn't rely on how you feel. It's a deeper kind of fuel, the kind that burns steady, the kind that stays lit even in the dark. There's a reason why the most resilient people aren't always the strongest or the smartest. They're often the most connected to their reason for being. They know what they're working toward. They know who they're doing it for. And that knowledge becomes a quiet engine that carries them through things most people would walk away from. Endurance doesn't come from toughness alone. It comes from meaning. When you believe in what you're doing, you find a different kind of strength. You stop asking, how long will this take? And start asking, how far can I go? You stop chasing comfort and start pursuing contribution. And that shift changes everything. You can always tell when someone's anchored in purpose. They walk with more intention. They speak with more conviction. They aren't thrown off course by small setbacks because they're building something bigger than themselves. They may get tired, but they don't quit. They may get discouraged, but they don't disappear. Their fuel isn't the applause of the crowd, it's the clarity of the mission. That's why purpose matters, because it sustains you in seasons where nothing else can. There'll be days when everything feels uphill, when the winds are few and the doubts are loud. On those days, talent won't save you. Passion won't either. What saves you is the reminder that what you're doing matters, that the work has weight, that someone is counting on you, that your effort is connected to impact. Without purpose, even the easiest tasks feel like a burden. I said, with purpose, even the hardest tasks become a privilege. It doesn't mean you enjoy every moment, but it means you show up with a sense of responsibility and pride. You don't just work, you serve. You don't just act, you contribute. That mindset is the difference between burnout and legacy. Burnout doesn't come from working too hard. It comes from working without meaning. When the days blur together, when the tasks feel empty, when the finish line keeps moving but the purpose is nowhere in sight, that's when people break. But when the purpose is clear, even the long nights feel worth it. Even the obstacles feel like part of the mission. Purpose gives your pain a job to do. It gives your effort a direction. It gives your journey a center of gravity. And the beautiful part is it doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It just has to be true. It just has to matter to you. Some people find their purpose in building a business. Some find it in raising a child. Others find it in serving a cause, protecting a community, or creating art that stirs the soul. It doesn't matter what it is. It only matters that it's real, that it's rooted in values, not vanity, that it pulls you forward when everything else tries to hold you back. Because make no mistake, there will be resistance. Any meaningful pursuit will test your endurance. It will challenge your commitment. It will ask you again and again, do you still care? Are you still in? And the only answer that holds is the one that comes from purpose. The one that says, yes, because this is bigger than me. Yes, because this matters. People often assume that the ones who keep going are somehow superhuman. But more often, they're just more connected, more grounded, more anchored in something they've chosen to believe in. They're not better than anyone else. They've simply chosen not to let comfort dictate their capacity. Purpose will always ask more from you, but it will also give more to you. It gives your work depth. It gives your relationships authenticity. It gives your life direction. And the best part, it spreads. When you live with purpose, you give others permission to do the same. Your clarity becomes contagious. Your commitment becomes inspiring. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you're living aligned, and alignment creates power. When your actions reflect your values, when your work serves your beliefs, when your goals express your mission, you feel less divided, less scattered, less drained. You start to operate from a place of integrity, not obligation, and that's where true energy comes from. So if you're feeling tired, ask yourself, is it the work or the lack of purpose behind it? Is it the hours or the emptiness of those hours? Is it the pressure or the absence of meaning? Because when you find meaning, everything changes. You might still be tired, but it will be a good kind of tired, a fulfilling kind of tired, the kind that says, today mattered. The kind that says, I'm building something that will outlast me. That's what endurance really is. It's not about pushing through endlessly. It's about finding the reason you choose to keep going in the first place. So before you chase more motivation, take a moment to revisit your purpose. Remind yourself why you started. Reconnect to the mission and let that purpose fuel you, not just to start, but to endure. Ambition is a beautiful thing. It's the spark that gets us dreaming, the vision that keeps us reaching, the voice inside that says there's more in you. But ambition by itself is not enough. It's the engine, yes, but without the fuel, without the drive, without the daily effort to match that ambition, it becomes nothing more than fantasy. The hard truth is this: if your energy doesn't match your ambition, you will fall short, not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't show up with the force required to carry your dreams into reality. We all want to succeed. We all want to achieve something meaningful, but wanting it isn't rare. Everyone wants it. What's rare is the willingness to give what it takes to bring the level of energy, focus, and sacrifice that your ambition demands. You can't say you want to build a legacy, but show up like someone clocking in for a paycheck. You can't say you want to be the best, but move like you're just trying to get by. That gap between what you say and how you show up is where dreams quietly go to die. Because ambition makes a promise, but energy delivers on it. Every big vision comes with a cost. It costs time, it costs effort, it costs comfort. The bigger the ambition, the greater the demand. And the people who achieve what they set out to do, what separates them is not that they had a better plan or more luck or more talent. It's that they brought the intensity that matched the level of their vision, not for one day, but for every day. And that energy, it's not random. It's not loud or frantic. It's intentional. It's focused. It's the quiet force that wakes you up early when you could sleep in. It's the decision to review your work one more time before hitting submit. It's the discipline to say no to distractions, even when no one's watching. It's the awareness that everything counts, that how you do the small things is how you do everything. You don't become great by accident. You become great by aligning your behavior with your beliefs, by matching your effort to your expectations. You can't dream at a 10 and work at a 3. You can't talk about excellence while practicing inconsistency. Eventually, the truth shows. The world may believe your words for a while, but it will believe your actions forever. That's why your energy matters, not just the amount of it, but the quality of it. Are you present or are you distracted? Are you pushing through or are you phoning it in? Are you chasing approval or are you chasing growth? These questions aren't just about work ethic. They're about integrity. Because when you say you want something and you act like it's optional, you create internal conflict, and that conflict kills momentum. We all face moments when our energy dips, when motivation runs dry. That's normal. But in those moments, we have a choice. Do we default to comfort or do we return to purpose? Do we give what we have or do we give up? This is where people either separate or settle. Because the truth is, ambition is not a feeling, it's a responsibility. If you're going to dream big, you have to be willing to live big. You have to carry your own weight. You have to build your own habits. You have to show up with a presence that commands respect, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're trying to honor the vision. There's a difference between hype and energy. Hype is short-lived. Energy is built over time. It comes from taking care of yourself, from sharpening your mind, from training your body, from surrounding yourself with people who raise your standards instead of lower your bar. It's not about being busy. It's about being ready, mentally, emotionally, and physically, to rise to the level of your dream. And here's the catch. Sometimes your dream will stretch you. It will feel bigger than you. And that's good. It should, because it means you're growing. But when that happens, you don't shrink your dream. You raise your energy, you expand your capacity, you show up earlier, you study harder, you make tougher calls. Not because it's easy, but because you've decided that it's worth it. You can always feel when someone is bringing real energy to their work. They move with urgency, not panic. They carry pressure, not fear. They know what's at stake, they know what they're trying to build, and they refuse to let their effort be the reason they fall short. And it's not about speed, it's about intention. There are people who move fast but go nowhere. And there are people who move steady, deliberate, clear, and they change the world. The difference is that one group is reactive, the other is aligned. So ask yourself, does your energy reflect the future you say you want? If you say you want to lead, do you study leadership? Do you practice it daily, even when no one gives you the title? If you say you want financial freedom, do you make disciplined choices or do you just hope it works out? If you say you want to make an impact, are you doing the deep, sometimes uncomfortable work that real impact requires? And these aren't questions to shame you, they're questions to wake you up. Because inside every person is the potential to do something extraordinary, but potential doesn't matter if it's not activated. And it's activated by energy. By movement, by choosing over and over again to show up like someone who's ready to carry the weight of their ambition. So let your actions rise to meet your aspirations. Let your effort match your expectations. Let your energy speak so clearly that people don't have to ask what you stand for, they can feel it. This is what it means to honor your ambition. Not just to dream it, but to work for it, to show up like you mean it, to give it everything you've got. Not for the sake of applause, but for the sake of the promise you made to yourself. Because in the end, your energy is your signature. Let it be bold. Let it be relentless. Let it be worthy of the future you're building. There's a quiet moment we all face when the alarm goes off, when no one's watching, when it's just you, the mirror, and the question that echoes louder than the clock. Will I move forward today, or will I make an excuse? Improvement isn't dramatic. It's not flashy. It rarely announces itself. It's in the decision to show up 5 minutes early. It's in the choice to stay 5 minutes later. It's in the effort to listen better, to try harder, to stretch a little further when your body or mind wants to quit. And it's in that decision, the tiny silent one, that the difference is made. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you're either getting better or making excuses. And you can't do both. Growth doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It doesn't depend on how you feel or whether things are going your way. In fact, the most meaningful growth often happens when things aren't ideal, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're under pressure. Those are the moments when progress is earned, not through comfort, but through commitment. Excuses are seductive. They sound reasonable. They're easy to justify. They let us off the hook gently. I didn't have time. I'm too tired. I'm just not ready. But underneath every excuse is a decision to stay the same. And there's nothing neutral about that. When you choose not to grow, you choose to stall. And when you stall long enough, you start to drift backward. Improvement is not something you stumble into, it's something you commit to. And that commitment is tested daily. It's tested when it's easier to scroll than to study. It's tested when it's easier to complain than to create. It's tested when it's easier to deflect than to look inward. But each test is an opportunity. And every time you choose growth, you strengthen something more important than skill. You strengthen character. Because better is not just about results. It's about becoming the kind of person who follows through, who rises above excuses, who keeps promises, especially to themselves. That kind of person is rare, but anyone can become them if they're willing to trade their excuses for effort. The people who keep growing aren't perfect. They fall, they get distracted, they make mistakes, but they own it. They don't hide behind excuses. They confront the truth and then they do something about it. That's the habit. That's the mindset. And yes, it is a habit. It's not just about willpower. It's about the system you build for yourself, the standards you set, the values you hold yourself to when no one is watching. People who get better consistently aren't driven by pressure. They're anchored by purpose. They've decided that excellence isn't optional, that progress isn't a one-time event. It's a way of living. They ask different questions. Not what do I feel like doing, but what needs to be done. Not can I avoid this, but what will I learn if I lean in? Not will this be easy, but will this make me better? These questions shape who you become because your life is shaped by your standards and your standards are revealed by your daily decisions. Excuses, on the other hand, lower those standards. They erode your potential slowly, invisibly. One day you rationalize skipping the workout. The next, you justify avoiding the call. Soon, you start living a life full of stories about why things didn't happen. But stories don't change your life. Actions do. And the most powerful action you can take is to tell yourself the truth. Not the polished version. Not the version you tell others. But the raw, unfiltered truth. Am I getting better or am I making excuses? The truth is uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Because once you own where you are, you can choose where you go. That's where growth lives, in ownership, in accountability, in the decision to take full responsibility for your progress. Not in blaming circumstances, not in waiting for someone else to push you, but in choosing to rise again and again, not because you have to, but because you've made a promise to yourself that matters more than your mood. Improvement is not something you stumble into, it's something you commit to. And that commitment is tested daily. It's tested when it's easier to scroll than to study. It's tested when it's easier to complain than to create. It's tested when it's easier to deflect than to look inward. But each test is an opportunity. And every time you choose growth, you strengthen something more important than skill. You strengthen character. Because better is not just about results. It's about becoming the kind of person who follows through, who rises above excuses, who keeps promises, especially to themselves. That kind of person is rare, but anyone can become them if they're willing to trade their excuses for effort. Now let's be clear, this isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest. Honest enough to admit when you've slipped, honest enough to see when you're settling, and honest enough to get back on track before a bad day becomes a bad habit. The good news is growth is always within reach. You don't need a perfect plan. You need to start where you are with what you have and just take one step forward. And then another, and then another. That's how mountains are climbed. That's how legacies are built. Quietly, repeatedly, relentlessly. So next time you're tempted to rationalize, to wait, to defer your effort to tomorrow, stop. Ask yourself the only question that really matters in that moment. Am I getting better or making an excuse? Your answer will shape more than your day, it will shape your life.